Welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. And today I wanted to do a follow-up to the video I posted on Monday on coronavirus, where I talked about the importance of observing our conditioned responses and how, for example, if we tend to have an anxiety pattern, we may be responding from anxiety. If we have a sort of pain avoiding, focusing on the kind of the positive attitude, we may be doing that. And just sort of the importance of seeing these patterns playing out and not getting caught in them. Today, what I wanted to do was just to share a bit more of what I've learned having been doing my own research. And I am not a scientist, I'm not an expert in coronavirus. So anything that I say here, I think should be held with those sort of caveats in place. Having said that, having gone into some of the data and some of the research here, we have taken certain decisions at the Optimum Health Clinic around social isolation. And I think there are some things that are important to consider if you're particularly in a vulnerable group. And that doesn't necessarily mean vulnerability in terms of your immune system. It may just be vulnerability in terms of your physical energy and your dependence upon certain things in terms of practical support, and making sure that those things are in place and can continue. I'm also, I wanted to bring a bit of a lens to this as well, because I think some of the psychological reactions that are currently happening with people, I think are similar to some of the things we see on a micro level that happen in chronic illness, which is that things are going down a certain path. And the way, for example, when people first started getting symptoms of ME chronic fatigue, often what they do is there's a certain amount of denial that comes in. We don't want to believe it to be true. We want life as we know it to continue. So despite the fact there's information that tells us something that's going on, we ignore that to the point that we don't really have any choice any longer. That has a consequence. With ME chronic fatigue, one of the best predictors of long-term prognosis is early diagnosis, because that's hopefully the point that we stop and we listen. And the reason why I did quite a bit of reading and research around this is I needed to make some decisions for Optimum Health Clinic about whether we keep the office open for staff, for general public, for various workshops and courses and such things that we have booked. And there's an article which I'm showing the link underneath this video, which was one of the articles that particularly informed my thinking around this. And I'm not going to try and, it's a kind of 20-25 minute read the article, so I'm not going to try and summarize the whole thing, but there's a couple of key points that I do think are relevant. The first is that it takes 5 days with coronavirus for people to start to see symptoms. It then takes, currently, certainly here in the UK, it takes a couple of days if you are tested for coronavirus to get the results of that test. What that tells us is that the public statistics of people that have been confirmed cases of coronavirus here in the UK are at least 7 days behind what's actually happening, because it's taking people 5 days to get any symptoms. When they do get symptoms, if they get tested the first day they get symptoms, which is probably not what's happening in most cases, it's a couple more days to get the results. So if we know that the public data is at least 7, probably more like 8 to 10 days behind what's happening, and we know the rate at which coronavirus is spreading, it may well be that the true number of people that are currently infected with coronavirus in the UK is probably in the region of 10 times the numbers that we currently see in the media. Now, I'm not saying this to cause people to panic and freak out. That's completely unhelpful. And everything I said in Monday's video still stands. If your pattern is to go into anxiety, that's probably not helpful. If your pattern is to start trying to control everything, that's probably also not helpful. And denying facts or not seeing something we don't want to see never makes it better. It's one of the reasons why, and something that I've been saying for many, many years, I don't believe in positive thinking. When people try and convince themselves that things are better than they are, they then ignore evidence, which ends up ultimately with being convinced, actually, the evidence was right and I was wrong. For example, on the recovery path, when people try and convince themselves they're further ahead than they are, they end up having crashes or having relapses. I also don't believe in making things worse than they are. And what many people can do is they can be so unrealistic in could be so negative in their thinking that a move from being negative to being realistic looks like positive thinking, but it's not. We want to be as accurate in our thinking and in our behaviors as we possibly can in our response to what's happening. We don't want to go into denial and pretend things that aren't happening that we don't want to be happening. But we also don't want to make things worse than they are and go into a mindset where we're constantly living in a state of fear, which is unhelpful and unuseful in a situation like this. So the data all seems to tell us that the coronavirus is spreading and it is going to get a lot worse in terms of the number of people that get infected before it gets better. Also, what we know is that it has a much bigger impact on the elderly and people that are younger and have basically well-functioning immune systems are very likely that even if they do get it, to have an uncomfortable period of time, but ultimately to be fine. So this being the case, what action should we take? Well, we took the decision in the last 24 hours to stop all non-staff coming to Optimum Health Clinic. So our upcoming 90-day programs are going to be taught online, which, by the way, I think is actually going to be an awesome addition to the way that we work. It means we don't have to spend the physical energy traveling in. It means that people can join from the comfort of their own home. And a lot of good's going to come from working in that way. We do something like 90% of our consultations online. Well, it's going to be 100% for the coming few months. Any staff coming to the office are not coming via public transport. And pretty much everyone is working from home, apart from a few people that live locally. And at the moment, it seems reasonable for them to come into the office with lots of hand washing and caution. If you are able to spend, I think anyway in the coming few weeks, there's going to be pretty much enforced isolation that's going to, or at least social distancing that's going to come in. If you can get ahead of that curve, that is likely to be a positive thing to do. Precautions that we're taking, as I say, staff working from home. My wife and I have 3 kids. The 3 kids are still in school, but we are pretty military about the kids of washing hands when they come back into the house, and we're assuming that the schools will get closed in the coming week or two. If you have chronic fatigue, ME, fibromyalgia, what are some of the things that you could be doing to prepare? Well, I think making sure you have enough food is a good idea. Does that mean you need to start buying up the supermarkets? Absolutely not. From what I understand, there's no evidence that there's going to be issues with supply chains. The supermarkets say there's plenty of stock. It's just about people panic buy it. It takes time to replenish the shelves. But if you do end up being isolated, it will be a good idea to book some food deliveries a few weeks in advance, because people like Tesco's and Waitrose and Sainsbury's are getting, it takes longer to get deliveries at the moment. So I would recommend getting enough food for, 5 days a week, and then booking some deliveries so you know that you're going to be replenished if you need to be. If you depend upon any supplements or supplements are part of your recovery program, I would make sure you've got a month or two supply if you're running low. I did just call one of the supplement companies that we work with because I just wanted to see how they're doing, and they're busy at the moment. So you might assume that a delivery that will take a couple of days may take 4 or 5 days. So just a little bit of planning around that sort of thing, I think, is a good idea. We've ordered on the assumption that the kids are all going to be home for a period of, maybe 4 to 6 weeks. We've ordered a bunch of fun board games and games we can do in our little garden in London that will sort of not give the kids on day one, but every 3 or 4 days, something a little bit fun can come out to sort of break up. Things like making sure you keep routine. My wife and I had a conversation last night about if the kids are off school, still keeping sort of school hours and having structure and routine. So kids have a sense of stability and the feeling of safety that comes from that. So I think just taking, I guess really the essence of what I'm trying to say in this video is, don't make things better than they are. Don't go into denial. Don't be like someone that's body screaming at them that they're going to burn out and they're ignoring it. Like, the evidence is there. Pay attention to it. See what's happening in countries like Italy. But also don't make it worse than it is. As long as someone's not infected, even in a period of shutdown, you should still be able to go out and have walks and get fresh air. You just need to keep distance from people and be careful what you touch. I realize that this is, I think, for everyone in their own way, it's very unsettling. And it's very easy to get focused on all of the negative things which are part of this. And it brings up, the biggest fear we all have, like the fundamental fear in human beings is death. And this triggers people's death anxiety. And from a psychological point of view, that can be quite tough and quite challenging. So it's reasonable to feel a little bit unsettled and a bit unsure. And I would be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself, but also be really cautious of your mind making this worse than it is. This is something that will pass. This is something that the vast majority of people will come through. And I already see potential improvements and growth that comes to society as a result of going through this. Things like more compassion and understanding for people with ME chronic fatigue, for example, and the imposed isolation that's probably coming is something that many of the people that we work with have been experiencing for sometimes years. And so a bit more understanding around that, more understanding of flexible working. We've had a flexible working model since day one of Optimum Health Clinic. Many of our staff work remotely, and I think there's much that's much healthier about that for family life and for kind of work-life integration. So I think there's going to be some good evolutions and changes with that. I hope we're going to see communities coming together. Again, my wife and I were discussing around the people that we know in our kind of local area in North London, people that we might need to provide food for and support, and just sort of thinking about that community kind of mindset. And we grow through challenge. Anyone that's been on the recovery path from ME chronic fatigue will have seen that you become stronger through we become stronger through the challenges that we face. And this is a challenge, and I recognize for some people watching this video, I called my mum and stepdad this morning and sort of had this conversation with them about what they need to do to prepare. I've just been messaging with one of my siblings about it, and I think people are always used to me being a kind of very calm, measured voice of reason, which, I think I am. And I'm also one for trying to really see the facts. And it might be that watching this video, you feel your nervous system kind of ramping up, going, but Alex is supposed to be the one that reassures me and calms me. You don't need to panic. For some people, this is going to be a really nice opportunity to actually slow down, calm down, connect and be closer to the people that we love. And, ultimately, we come through it, we grow, we get stronger. The number of people that I've seen go through, recovering from ME chronic fatigue is far worse than what most people are going to experience in the coming few months. But the growth that can come from that is also amazing. So be gentle with yourself. Don't overreact. Make sure that you put things in place if you need to, in terms of making sure that you've got a little bit of plan around food. You buy it all now, particularly if you're buying fresh food. That's going to be pointless anyway. Booking some food deliveries, ensuring you've got a little bit of supply of any supplements that you need. Might take a bit longer. Supplement companies plan on staying open as far as I'm aware, but it might take a bit longer for certain things to arrive. Plan for the boredom, and think about the people around you that might need support. And yeah, I'm gonna try to avoid my videos all becoming about coronavirus, because I think people also want change. I think it's great timing that the new series is starting on Tuesday on filmed therapy sessions. We're really excited to start putting those out, but I will do some more videos like this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and yeah, I hope that's been helpful.